Welcome to the Million Pound Mission Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Shively, the PhD, the previously heavy dude, and I'm on a 1 million pound mission. I've personally lost over 100 pounds. I've helped my hometown lose over 35,000 pounds, and now I'm on a mission to produce over 1 million pounds of results by helping you gain clarity about what you need to do to reach your goals and give you the confidence to take action. And my friends, the perfect time to start taking action is now. Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of the Million Pound Mission Podcast. It's your buddy Adam, the PhD, the previously heavy dude. And this is episode number 189, Turning Perceived Failure into Olympic Glory with Brent Hayden. Now, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you something here. How many times have you had a big goal and then put some energy into achieving it, but you just came up short of that goal? You didn't quite hit it, right? So did you decide to try again, or did you quit? Now, we all know that finding that mental fortitude to not give up on our goals and our dreams is that, that's a skill that we have to acquire throughout our lifetime. And that is exactly what we're going to talk about here and focus on with this episode with my special guest, Brent Hayden. Now, Brent is a Canadian swimmer. He's originally from Mission, British Columbia. He's a 3-time Olympian. He's an Olympic bronze medalist, and he's a world champion. So this dude is world class, all right? We're classing up the place here in the Million Pound Mission Podcast. Now, he's made a transition post-swimming career. Now he's a fine art photographer and an entrepreneur who's launched his Astra Athletica activewear company that helps athletes fuel their Olympic dreams. We get into that in this episode. It's a really, really cool idea, and I fully endorse that company and that concept. So as Brent and I dive into the episode, we start off by talking about how he transformed from where he was a kid that actually failed his first swim lessons into becoming an Olympic bronze medalist and a world champion. So huge transition there. We also talked about how to escape the I'm not there yet mindset trap. Have you guys ever fallen victim to that? Where you're like, oh, I've made some progress, and we're not really celebrating that. And we start saying, well, I'm not there yet. I'm not at my big goal yet. So how do we escape that trap? We also talk how he was able to handle his life transition after his swimming career was over. I know a lot of us really struggle with those transitions, whether it's just a schedule change or a relationship change or a career change. So we talk about that a little bit. And at the end, we give his best advice for anyone that wants to be able to learn from perceived failures and turn them into building blocks towards their goals. Brent was somebody that, I had heard really good things about him, but he over-delivered on how just good of a dude he is. He's a really cool guy. He really cares about, his message and the value he's able to bring to you as an audience. I was very impressed with him. I think you're going to love this interview. Now, after the interview, I've got a big announcement. Big announcement about my Transformation Reboot program. I've changed something with how we operate with it, and you're going to like it, and you're going to listen after the episode. That's the teaser, but no more teasers. It's time for action. Let's dive into episode number 189, Turning Perceived Failure into Olympic Glory with Brent Hayden. All right, Brent, welcome to the Million Pound Mission Podcast. How are you doing today, my friend?
Doing good, Adam. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm excited. You've got such an interesting story. And spoiler alert, I'm going to spoil it right from the beginning. You're an Olympic medalist, all right? But you failed at your initial attempt at swimming with your swim lessons. I want to start there. Tell me the story about failing at your initial swim lessons, but then deciding to go through and get back in the pool anyways. Let's start at the beginning.
Well, I kind of just sucked at everything I was doing as a kid. I was going to school, and you know who the athlete kids are. The kids that are going to probably go on and have some kind of success in sport. And nobody looked at me like that kid. I was just getting picked relatively towards the end of gym class, not exactly last, but pretty far down there. But swimming was just one of those things that I just couldn't really get, and it did come down to the fact that I actually did have a hearing issue. So focusing, with my instructors was definitely a huge challenge. especially at pools, there's a lot of background noise going on. There's music, there's other kids splashing. And for me, if I could just put my ears underwater, it was just peaceful down there, So the first time my parents put me in, I was just scared of the water, but then they put me back in again, and you just couldn't get me to focus. So I would just kind of got handed back to my parents, just like, this kid is basically uncoachable, like, get him out of here. And it just kind of, I think the most important thing was that I just fell in love with the water, and it had no bearing on how good or how bad I actually was. I did it because I loved it.
That's interesting. So when, I have grown up, I'm born and raised in Bloomington, Indiana, and basketball is the thing in Indiana, and we start doing it early, but it's very, very competitive. So that's interesting to me that you more just fell in love with the environment and the nature of the sport and being in the water, and that's what brought you back into it. So obviously you started getting pretty good at swimming and you started to develop, but that takes a lot of hard work. So tell me about the journey, because I know when I get a hold of an adult now that has either done swimming or martial arts as a youth, their mindset is just different because that discipline level is there. So let's talk about how you transition from, okay, you're passionate about being in the water, you love that, to actually being somebody that's dialed into that competitive mindset and the discipline that it's taken to develop that.
Yeah, funny you actually mentioned the martial arts, because that's actually what contributed to my swimming success, I believe. I started doing karate early on, about grade 6 or grade 7. The dojo is actually right across the parking lot from the pool. Yeah. So I would go to swim practice. Instead of getting changed back into, the clothes I was wearing at school, I'd be getting changed into my gi or, my karate uniform. Yep. And walking out the back door across the parking lot straight to the dojo. And I did that for 5 years. I was doing Ishinryu, got my black belt. And while I was doing that, I think the thing that really changed was that I started respecting the reason why I was there a little bit more. It wasn't just, I love the water, it's fun, my parents dropped me off, and I get to be babysat by my coaches for the next hour until my parents come back and pick me up. I started showing up with a lot more purpose, and not just respect necessarily for my coaches. I mean, I definitely respected my coaches, but I kind of gave a little bit more respect to what they were teaching me. And that's when my swimming really started to improve. And I went from being the kid that was just, showing up in the finals, but, I was just not the kid that was winning, to all of a sudden now I'm showing up to these meets and I'm breaking records. I showed up to my first provincial championship. Now, just a reminder, I was doing summer club for 10 years. So I wasn't even, in the serious league, I guess you could say. Right. It was just kind of fun. But I didn't win my first provincial gold medal in summer club until my Division 6 year. So I was 14 years old when I did that. I've been doing this for 10 years. So during that time is when I was doing the karate. So that was a big shift in my mental game.
So I know you've got an interesting story also about, it seems like you had a moment early on when that flip got switched a little bit, and you were talking about goals with a group of peers, and you raised your hand and you kind of called your shot a little bit. So tell me about that real quick.
Yeah, my teacher was making all the kids stand up in grade 3 class, saying what we wanted to be when we grew up, and threw my hand up and I said, I want to swim in the Olympics and I want to build robots. And she looks at me and goes, Brent, you can only pick one. I'm like, okay, well, I want to swim in the Olympics then. So again, like I didn't have to be good at it to want to make that dream. It's just, I knew I loved swimming. And I knew that if I just kind of threw out that big, crazy dream out there, that was going to be the seed that sort of was going to set me up along that path. So wherever I was starting had no bearing on that, right? Yeah. You don't make goals on something that you're already good at.
Right. So tell me about the first time that you had that feeling of, wow, I could actually, this could actually happen. What was that like?
So when I was 15, this was the first year that I moved out of summer club and moved with a team that trained at a higher level. And I went to my first youth national championships and I won. 1 year out of summer club, nice. Going and competing against all the best swimmers in Canada for my age group. and I won the 100-meter freestyle. I remember standing behind the block and hearing my parents cheering for me. And I just look up in the stand and I just threw them a thumbs up. Like I just knew I had it in the bag. And somebody reminded me about that a little while ago. I'd actually forgotten about it, but I realized that I think that was kind of the moment right there, probably even before the race, that I actually knew that this was going to be something that I was actually going to be pretty amazing at.
That's awesome. And the old thumbs up, that always works for the parents.
Yeah.
Now, so you make your first Olympics, right? You're in Athens, and obviously this could be, a nerve-wracking experience for anybody, like first Olympic experience. But, one of the things I talk about on the show a lot is our ability to handle curveballs when life throws us something unexpected. How do we bounce back from that? How do we handle that mentally and progress forward? How do we learn from that? So you had something pretty unbelievable happen to you at the Olympics that didn't have anything to do with swimming. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, let's set the stage first. I had already done really, really poorly at the Olympics, and that's an understatement. I've got some more choice words for how bad I actually did that I will not utter here. So it was a complete, utter failure, and I felt like the biggest disgrace to come from my country for how badly I actually did. And then the night before the closing ceremony, so remember, this is a week after I was done competing, just out with other teammates doing, what athletes do at the Olympics when they're done competing. They go out and they celebrate. And we ended up in this one area of downtown Athens where suddenly there were just riot police everywhere. And we had no idea what was going on. And before we could even decide as a group where we were going to go, we're just kind of like huddled in a circle, like, okay, well, where should we go? Should we just go back to the village? Because I feel like this is not like a safe place to be. All of a sudden, people in the streets just start picking up rocks and bottles, whatever they could find, and just start throwing them down the street at the police. So the whole crowd just became one big target. Okay, so I remember turning around and looking at the line of the riot police, and in their gears, they all got their shields side by side, banging their batons, on their shields, making noise. All of a sudden, they just started running towards us. And then you could hear the pop, pop, pop of the rubber bullets. So I did what everybody else did that wasn't involved. We just ran to get out of there. Yeah. So I ran into a doorway, got in as far as I could, because now this room was crammed with people, and I thought I was safe. And next thing you know, this big hand just reaches over my shoulder, just grabs me by the shirt, and just yanks me back out into the street. And I got thrown face down on the ground and just beaten by the other athletes. There were about 4 or 5 police on just me, beating me with their batons, kicking me with their steel-toed boots. I was even like flashing my athlete accreditation because I had it attached to a lanyard, which was attached to my belt loop. So I flashed that up with one hand, screaming, "I'm an athlete, please stop hitting me."
Oh my God.
And they actually just ripped it off. I have it at home. It's all crumpled up and still like super dirty and busted. But my one arm that was protecting my head actually took a crack. And because of that, I couldn't compete at the World Short Course Championships, which were just a few weeks earlier, because I couldn't move my arm. We actually thought it was broken. I had to go get an x-ray on it because it was, the elbow was swollen by it was like an inch. It looked like the bone was lifting up through the skin. It was really sick. So when I came home from that, I wanted to quit swimming so badly.
Yeah.
I never made the commitment to quit. I kept going through the motions, trying to act as if everything was okay, that I was still, part of a team. I was still showing up as if I had goals for the World Championships the next summer in Montreal. And the more I was going to practice, the harder it was getting, the more the thoughts about quitting were coming up into my head. So I started talking to my coach about it, and he got me appointments with our team psych, our sports psychologist. So once a week, sometimes twice a week, I had to go meet with our team psychologist. And meet with my coach probably 2-3 times a week, because not that they were scheduled, but I would just break down in the middle of practice, and I would just start crying like in the middle of the pool, and have to be hanging on to the lane rope because I couldn't breathe. I was on the phone with my parents, talking to whatever friends who I felt were willing to listen. I think it was just, I had to talk about it. Because trying to bottle it up inside it was actually making me weaker, not stronger. So by talking about it, by letting it out, I was able to start to sort through my problems and start to think about what was really important to me. Was I going to let this just be the conclusion of a very short book, or was it just going to be another chapter? And I realized that this was just going to be another chapter. I was going to use it as fuel moving forward. So as soon as I was able to actually make that decision that I was actually going to use this experience and not just be ashamed of it, but actually use it to my benefit, learn about, the things that went wrong, when we were talking about the competition, and then just realize that the overall experience, I was just going to use that as fuel to realize that I am better than this. And I'm going to go out there and I'm going to prove not just other people wrong, but I'm going to prove myself wrong as well. And I came back the next year and won two silver medals at the World Championships.
That's awesome. What a story. I mean, that's just incredible. Just the double whammy of the poor performance that you are not happy with at all. And then boom, this riot and getting beat up and not being able to compete in the next event. I feel like in that moment when life does throw us that curveball, we have those choices. And I love your words of using it for fuel, because I feel like we can either use it for fuel or we can start to feel sorry for ourselves, and we go one way or the other. So what do you think kept you? I mean, how close were you really to just being like, screw it, I'm done? Like if we're going to put percentages on it, like how close did you get to being 100% I'm done?
I'd say I got to about 85%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. The only reason why I didn't get up to like the 90, 95 was because my coach was able to recognize when something was wrong. So a few times he had to come up and actually be the one to initiate that conversation.
Wow. That's a good coach. That's why you have coaches, right? Because they have that outside perspective. And so how important were your teammates, your coaches in this journey of transitioning? And because you kick things up to a whole new level where you started using this as fuel and you ignited your journey to that next level. And now you're winning medals, you're getting podium spots. So how important was the coach basically getting a hold of you and saying, listen, this is where we're going, this is where you've been, but we're going to kick things up to the next level. We're going to do it together. So how important of a role was that for you?
Well, I would not have been able to accomplish any of that without my coach. Because, my coach is the one that's able to provide focus and clarity a lot of the times. And like for me, I was a terrible goal setter. I was the guy that I'd make the big crazy dream, but I wouldn't make the little steps on how to get there. So what my coach was really good at was he'd be able to take my big goal and be able to break it down and say, okay, well, if you're going to accomplish this, we got to accomplish all these other little smaller things along the way, not just competitions leading up to, but just even weekly goals of times to do in practice. So when he was able to help me refocus on that and refocus on those micro goals, within the week or within the practice, that was another thing that helped me start to change my focus and stop feeling sorry for myself and kind of start gearing up for whatever the next step was going to be. Now, at those world champs, then my two silver medals were on relays. So that was really important to me because in Athens, one of my biggest disappointments was actually not getting a medal on the relay. So that's one thing that was really important to me, was that I was able to pay it back to my teammates that I let down, because swimming is a very individual event, but we do get the opportunities to come together as a team on the relay. So I think that was one of the best things about that, was actually doing that for my relay.
Yeah, and that's got to feel good to come through, and you're building that momentum. And so one of the things that I coach people up on a lot that you just touched on was having the difference between two types of goals, having an achievement goal and then having habit goals that build up to that. So I love it. I love it when my guests like solidify concepts that I've talked about before. I'm like, yes, that makes me sound smart. Thank you. So that your big achievement goal is obviously Olympic medals, right? And so, but your coach was able to help you make that basically a bite-size trip where you can say, here are the habit goals that we can do daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly to build towards that. So I always try to give people examples. I always use like basketball, because that's my thing. I played basketball. And the Golden State Warriors, they want to win a championship. Well, that's their achievement goal. Their habit goal is let's shoot 500 jump shots every day. So what would you say? Obviously, would you say that the achievement goal was the Olympic medal? Is that the big, that horizon line? So what did your daily regimen or your daily goals of just like those showing up goals, what did those look like for you?
Yeah, I think the biggest one, it was actually sometimes the hardest one, was actually making it to every single morning workout for a week. Like sometimes even just a week. Like I was able to do it, by the month pretty often, but even still, there's those mornings where your body's just broken and you don't want to get out of bed because it's 5 o'clock in the morning and you're just dead tired, and you start telling yourself all these excuses about why you could probably afford to sleep in. Like, I could use the extra recovery time. If I go now, it's probably going to be a bad practice. So if I sleep in, I'll get to go back this afternoon and have a good one. Like you start justifying these things in your head. And a lot of the times my coach would have to call me up and be like, why aren't you here? Right. And, I think there's a lot of value in just going up, even if you don't have a good practice, right? Like, because having a bad practice is better than having no practice at all. And it took me a while to actually realize that. I didn't have to go and be able to come home and be able to, feel proud about, the set I did in practice or these times I did or this weight I pushed or anything like that. Sometimes it's just, I actually made it when I didn't want to.
Yeah.
Right. I went, and that's often harder than any of the sets that my coach could actually give me at practice, is just walking out the door and making the commitment to go.
Yep. Showing up when you can't be at your best, you can still do your best. I love it. And I think another thing that we all struggle with, whether it's we're competitive athletes or whether we're on a weight loss journey, is we set those goals and that notion of, we know we're making progress, but we're not there yet, there in quotes, like that whole pressure of I'm winning medals, I'm placing, I'm doing well, but I'm not there yet. We're in that pursuit of perfection, that ideal. So how did you went to a couple of Olympics and still hadn't medaled in the Olympics. So how did you combat that mindset of the pressure of not being there yet, not reaching your goal yet, to where you just kept on showing up anyway and making your nice steady progress?
Yeah, and I actually just kind of touched on it right there with the word yet. The power of yet is something that I use a lot of in my training, or at competition. So after Beijing, I didn't have those fears that maybe I would want to quit, because I went to the second Olympics and I totally bombed again for completely different reasons this time. I realized that, especially in those ones, that was another huge learning opportunity, and I was going to use it again as fuel to make me stronger, to not go into competition with any expectations anymore, going in with the determination to make it happen. And that's what happened in Beijing, because I was world champion the year before. So this time I went in with a bit of an ego, and it got the best of me. I had the relay again right after the semifinal. And in the back of my head, I was kind of telling myself that I was good enough to save up my energy in the 100 free to lay it all out in the final for the relay. So in the end, I think I ended up caring a little bit too much about the relay and didn't take care of my business in the semifinal. So that was a big learning lesson for me. But I just kept telling myself, like, well, I don't have an Olympic medal yet, but I knew I still had another opportunity to do it. And so, whatever I was not good at, and I think this is the thing that I learned to do very early on, back when I was failing swimming lessons and going through those stages, that we're not good at anything yet, right? Like there was a day when, Slash didn't know how to play the guitar. Right. So I tell myself things like that everybody is on the path of yet. Everyone's working towards something to become good at it eventually. No one is born extrinsically good at anything. So after Beijing, I didn't think about quitting that time. I just told myself, well, I don't have an Olympic medal yet. And it made the fact that I have another opportunity to get it in London, it did make that fact that there's still an opportunity out there. But I also knew that in London, I was going to have to be faster or stronger than I was actually in Beijing. Okay. So in Beijing, I actually probably could have won a gold medal. That's how good I was feeling, but I just didn't do it there. But I knew that I could do it in London, but I was going to have to be even more skilled. I was going to have to be stronger. I was going to have to be faster, and I was going to have to be mentally tougher.
Right. So I feel like that happens a lot with people that I'm working with on weight loss too, where I think this is directly applicable to when somebody loses some weight and they regain it and they know, damn, that was hard last time. I had to work so hard and I still gained it back. I failed, and I know how hard it's going to be, and I have to work even harder because next time I want to maintain it. So how did you dial up your mindset for this new challenge that you knew was going to be hard? You have to spend extra time, extra mental effort and energy to accomplish this. You had to take things to a whole nother level. And so how did you dial things up? How did you get your mind right for that?
So it's all about doing these little micro adjustments, right? Because big changes are the hardest ones to actually make. And sometimes, that's when you fail. But if you break down the changes into these little tiny micro changes, it becomes way more manageable. So I was doing little things like tweaking my diet, trying to figure out what information is out there that I could tap into to help me make little small changes to my diet. Because I like to eat certain things. There's a lot of things out there that I don't like, so I'm not going to suddenly start hating food in order to do it. So I'd make like these little changes. I'd find the healthy options, like the healthy versions of things, or the healthier versions of things that I tend to like. Trying to go to bed just 15 minutes earlier, because over the course of a week, that's like doing 4 morning practices a week. That's an extra hour of sleep I'm going to get. And then also looking at my in competition, right? The ones that even were going well, starting to actually treat those the same way I would actually treat failures, in the sense that I would still sit down and look at my success and not think about, okay, well, this is all the stuff that went well, but it's like, okay, well, what could have been better in this? Okay. So I became very dissatisfied. I shouldn't say dissatisfied, but winning races didn't become what was important. I wasn't out there to win the race anymore. I was out there to see how fast I could go, right? I was taking everybody else out of the race, although, of course, wanting to win the race is always that motivation. You can't get rid of it, but psychologically, I was just telling myself, it's not about the win, not about the result. It's about the performance.
So I'm kind of a nerd about micro changes. So I'd like to go one level deeper on this to find out your philosophy. 'Cause I kind of geek out on this, because I feel like I talk about like pulling an arrow out of your back and firing it. You don't want to pull every arrow out of the quiver you have and fire them all at once, because we don't know what works, right?
Yeah.
So when you would get a new diet change or a new exercise change, how did you test it to see if it produced a positive result? Did you take one at a time and implement it for a week and then see what happens? And I really like how you collect data and you're learning from the data, and that takes pressure off the situation, sort of. So what was the micro change procedure? What did that look like for you?
Well, that's where my coach would be the one that would be keeping track of everything. I hated keeping track of things because for me, if I was writing everything down and keeping journals, and I know that this probably is what most people should be doing. For me, I almost start to feel like a little bit overwhelmed by the information, and I start I kind of become like a little bit obsessed with it, and I start going, okay, well, oh my god, so I was lucky enough to have a coach that could kind of take care of that, because if he came back, one day and said, hey, I've been tracking your progress in training, doing these certain test sets, and your performances are getting slower, or you haven't been able to get to the next level that I've been trying to get you to for the last couple months, then that's where I know that what I'm doing is not working.
Right.
But something else that we something that we did throughout like my last 4 years of my career was like, my coach and I, we constantly had these meetings. We would just go for breakfast after training, like every couple months, and we would sit down together and we'd go over the plan for the next 2 to 3 months. What competitions we're going to, what training camps we're going to. Like he would send me off to like another club to train with. For a week. Went down to Tucson to train with the South African swimmers who were there for a while. They were the gold medalists in Athens. All those things. And that's where we had kind of come up with that plan together. And we'd also look back at the last 2 to 3 months that we had just done and be like, okay, well, this worked, this didn't. So let's change that. So those micro changes, I'd say like those big micro changes were kind of like, that's kind of contradictory in terms, but, my coach was the one that was able to analyze those, for me. But all those little habits that I was doing at home, he obviously couldn't, he didn't really have any control over those. So for me, like the ones that I controlled were things like my diet. And I guess you could say like the thing that I had to really focus on there was more like how I was feeling, right? How was my mental clarity? How was my energy in the morning? Am I feeling like I'm having energy that's taking me through the practice? And also standing on the scale and looking in the mirror, like every day.
Yeah.
Like,
so did you incorporate any meditation, visualization, journaling, any sort of habits like that to help that mental practice, the mental side of the thing?
Well, I was doing yoga.
Okay.
My last year, leading into London, we actually took away my Wednesday morning practice and replaced it with a session of hot yoga.
Wow.
So I started doing that every week. But I think visualization and I was always pretty good at, because I'm a very visual guy. So I could literally play a movie in my head from start to finish. That's just how visual I am. So I was very good at visualizing myself in competition while at practice. So even if I didn't have any teammates around me in practice pushing me, because a lot of the times I would be doing my own training sets, I could visualize myself in a race and push myself to train at a higher level. So that definitely helped a lot.
Yeah.
Going into competition. Just before a race, I just put my headphones on, just listen to my favorite music, and I wouldn't even have to necessarily try to do it, but I would just start naturally just visualizing my race, not necessarily where I am in the pool in relation to my competitors, but I'd be focusing on how am I going to do my start? Where am I going to put my first my forward foot? With my toes curling over, I'd feel the block underneath my feet. How am I going to approach the wall for my flip turn? How am I going to plant my feet? How many dolphin kicks do I visualize myself doing when I'm coming off the wall? And then I actually start to feel my lungs starting to burn as I want to be able to take that first breath. Because swimming is one of those sports where you don't get to breathe whenever you want.
Right.
Right. So as like all those things just start to come. And I know what I've heard from a lot of other athletes is when they start visualizing like that and their heart rate starts picking up, they don't want to visualize anymore because they don't like feeling that sense of anxiety. And I think a lot of the top athletes, we realize that when you start feeling that anxiety, the butterflies in your stomach, the elevated heart rate, the cotton mouth, the tingling hands and feet, the sweaty armpits, that's how you're actually going to perform well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If you don't feel that, you're not going to perform. It's as simple as that. Because adrenaline makes you stronger.
Yeah.
But you also get adrenaline when you're fearful. So realizing that, that you're getting ready to perform, you're not getting ready to run away for your life, are two totally different things. So if you get to actually channel that into your performance, when you sit down and visualize, you start to feel that. I'd almost give myself a mental pat on the back to say to thank my body for putting it into a state that it needs to be in order to perform.
That's cool. I love that. So let's talk about your moment of glory, hitting the podium in an Olympics. So tell me about leading up to that, your mindset going in, where your confidence level is at. I mean, did you feel it? Did you feel like I got this? And then what did it feel like when you actually knew that you had medaled?
So I had a few things that happened before those games. First, my last competition, I was ever going to do before the Olympic Games. So kind of like a prep competition was, I think it was the Quebec Cup in Montreal. I flew from Vancouver to Montreal. Some people actually came up from the States to actually race me as their pre-Olympic preparation.
Wow.
And the morning of the 100-meter freestyle, my coach calls me and says, so my hotel room phone goes off. He says, "Why aren't you at the pool?" I look at the clock and realize that my alarm didn't go off.
Oh my God.
And he's like, "Well, you're supposed to race in like 15 minutes. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to be there." And my coach was actually kind of okay with it. And that's the only race I've ever missed in my entire life. From when I was a little kid, my parents were running around making sure that I was, in the marshalling area on time, writing my event numbers down on my hand or my arm with their pens. That was the only race I ever missed. It happened to be the race before my competition, before the Olympics, my last race. Gosh. So I didn't really get that confidence boost, but I just kind of laughed it off because, I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason, right? I just told myself, well, there's a reason why I didn't race, right? So like maybe I would have raced and I would have, slipped on the pool deck or something like that, right? You just never know. Or maybe I would have just done really badly and would have just completely crushed my confidence going into the games. Like, I don't know what the reason was. But after that, we all flew as a national team to Italy to stage for the Olympics in Olbia. And so you can just kind of picture the setting. So we have, we're at this resort in Olbia. It has an outdoor 50-meter Olympic pool and an indoor 25-meter pool. We have catering, like everything is done for us. Like the pool is like a 5-minute walk, if that, from my hotel room. So it was like the most perfect setting you could actually think of to be getting ready for the Olympics. And the second day we were there, I'm in my hotel room and I got off my bed and to go get something from my suitcase. And suddenly I had a back spasm and I ended up on the floor in the fetal position, screaming in pain. Now I'd been having spasms since the Beijing Olympic trials. I actually spent the night in hospital at the Beijing Olympic trials, but thankfully I had just made that team that night. It happened while warming down from making the team. Wow. And these had hampered my training all the way through the last 4 years. I couldn't go like 2 to 3 weeks without a spasm taking me out of the pool for maybe a day, sometimes just the rest of practice. And I'd stretch it off in the hot tub and I was able to get back in. But this one was the worst one I had since the Beijing trials. And I couldn't walk for 4 days. This is what this turned into.
Oh my God.
And I remember we're 2 weeks before the Olympics. And I started thinking started having all these thoughts of doubt just coming into my head. Like, am I even going to get to compete? Like, am I going to be able to walk on the pool deck, let alone get up actually like on the blocks and actually compete? So, I started thinking about Athens. I started thinking about Beijing and how bad those Olympics were. And I knew people were already questioning if I was going to go to the London Games and just fail again. So having these thoughts popping in my head that I might not even get to compete, like I was not going to be good enough, I started telling myself, well, maybe I'll just quit. Right? Maybe I'll just avoid the embarrassment of getting up on the blocks and not being able to give 100%. So on the fourth day, I kind of like leaned against the wall to get to the pool. And what I said is usually like a 5-minute walk took me like over half an hour to get there because I just felt like I just something was telling me I just needed to see the pool that day. Right? I needed to just go and just put my feet in just to feel the water, just kind of like to bring myself back. And I got to the pool and I started getting emotional. And my coach looks at me and he comes over and he just says, "Okay, well, what's wrong?" And right there, I just told him exactly the thought that was been building up in my mind, that I'm going to retire before the Olympics. And he just looks at me and he says something along the lines of like, "Well, why don't you?" right? And when he said that, it really pissed me off. Now remember, this is my coach that got me through Athens, right? Through that tough time. So he knows me, right? He knows what button he needs to push. So when he said that to me, it really pissed me off, and I had like an emotional outburst. I let out all that tension that was building up inside of me, and I was throwing it all at him. And I left the pool, and I ate dinner. Ended up eating dinner by myself because none of my teammates wanted to sit with me. Don't blame them. And went to bed, and I woke up the next morning, and my back felt better.
Wow.
And I realized that my coach knows me even better than I thought, because he knew exactly which button needed to be pushed, and he was willing to take all that tension out of me and let me throw it at him just to let me to get it out there. And within 2 days, I was back swimming as if nothing had gone wrong.
Wow.
So when I actually got to the Olympic Games, I knew I'd just gone through that. I knew how fortunate and how blessed I was to be able to get over that and still be able to be in a position where I'm, still feeling 110%, because that easily could have just taken me out of the games, right? Not just physically, but emotionally as well, and spiritually. So when I actually walked out for the semifinal of the games, I'd never been as nervous for a semifinal as I had been that day. And I totally screwed up my start. I screwed up my flip turn. I didn't even have a very good finish, but I swam that race as if that was going to be my last race ever. So technically it wasn't very good, but emotionally and, it was, and, I poured my whole soul into that race on the effort scale, that I was able to actually touch and actually have an opportunity to swim in the final. The opportunity I didn't get in Athens or Beijing, right? Beijing, I had to watch the final of the 100 free get swum from the stand, and the guy that won the bronze medal swam slower than what I'd let off a relay just a few days earlier.
Oh man!
So a reporter actually asked me what it means to me to actually be in the final, and I'd never been emotional after making a final. Right, making a final was always just another step to the goal. But I actually just started crying in front of that reporter, and I just told him, like, this just means everything. Just the fact that I even had an opportunity to walk out on the pool deck with my country's tracksuit and be in an Olympic final with an actual shot at a medal. It just meant the absolute world to me. Now, the next day I woke up, because I started visualizing my race while I was sleeping. I woke up at 6:45. My heart rate was over 130.
Oh my gosh.
So the anxiety started kicking in really early. But the scary thing was that I actually felt a rib in my back out of place. It felt like it was actually going to punch through my skin, like pop out. So I called up my chiropractor, and he wasn't even allowed in the village until 10 o'clock with his accreditation. So I had to walk through the security outside the village, and he had set up his chiropractor table right there on the sidewalk in public for me to get treatment.
Nice.
So so it's on the sidewalk. Like, there's cars going by, there's pedestrians, people are stopping, they're taking pictures, and here I am just trying to get my rib back in place, and he couldn't. Like, this thing just would not move. So throughout that day leading up to the final, I'm just going through my head, thinking about all the times I had failed and how I had used those, as my learning opportunities, how many times I had failed successfully to get to this moment, to think about, okay, well, what were those really preparing me for? And then I started thinking about, the Commonwealth Games in 2010, when I actually set the time that ranked me number one in the world. I was sick, right? Because we were in India, I was in Delhi, and I got the Delhi belly. So even like right before my race, I was in the bathroom, losing weight, basically, right before my race. And I ended up, becoming the first person in history to break 48 seconds without the aid of the full, tech bodysuits. I did that while I was sick. I remember I started thinking about being a little kid at provincials, and I had a flu. And again, I was vomiting like crazy. And I still had to get up and race. And I did all best times. I didn't win, but I did all best times while I had the flu. And I started telling myself like that all these things that I was able to perform when I was not at my best. And then I realized that I've never actually performed well when I was feeling 100%. There was always something that wanted to be holding me back, right? I was never perfect. And that's why, you have to go to training when you don't want to go.
Yeah.
Right. You got to do it when you don't feel like it, because this was the day that was like, it's a 100-meter freestyle Olympic final. It's my third Olympics. It took me 3 Olympics to get here. 2 weeks before, I couldn't walk. Today, my back is my rib is out of place. I'm the oldest one in this final by 5 years. Right, like just thinking about all these reasons why I shouldn't be able to do it. But because I'd always done it when I didn't feel like it. I'd always gone to those practices when I felt like just sleeping in. That is why I was able to succeed. When everything was working against me, that is when I did it. Amazing.
So what did that moment feel like when you touched your hand and you looked up and you saw that you were on the podium? Like what did that, because you're spending a huge amount of your life and your focus and your energy and your effort day in, day out, and it culminates with that touch. What was that like?
So I was out in lane 7, and I knew that the guy in lane 6, Sven, he was, I knew he was going to be slow on the way out. So I knew I was going to have no idea where I was in the pool. Like if you're in the middle lanes, against, the guys that are ranked, first or second or third, you can get a pretty good gauge about how your performance is going. So the entire race, I'm swimming as if I'm seeing somebody who's ahead of me. And I'd actually finally had the perfect start I'd ever wanted, like the most perfect dive off the blocks, the most perfect reaction time that I'd ever could have asked for. And I had only been able to do that because my team had actually, like the Canadian swim team had actually spent about $30,000 on me over the last 2 years to figure out how to get me off the blocks faster. Working with a biomechanist in Estonia, I had like one of my number one competitors, Roland Skuman from South Africa, to actually teach me his secrets. So after I had not done that in the semifinal, I was able to refocus that and really apply it in the final. So when I got off those blocks and I knew I'd hit that perfect dive, I kind of realized right away that this was going to be the race of my life. Wow. Right from the get-go. But I had no idea where anybody else was. So just swimming, I was basically trying to swim my own race. So I'd mentally projected somebody ahead of me that I was chasing the whole way. I did my flip turn, came off the wall. My lungs are screaming for air. I'm like, nope, just got to do one more dolphin kick. Come up, take a stroke. I'm like, nope, got to take one more stroke before I let myself breathe. So you're trying to turn that voice off, the one telling you to take that early breath. Because I knew if I took that early breath that I was not going to actually get my hand on the wall in the metal. So when I had about 15 or 20 meters left to go, my body's just screaming at me to just stop doing this, stop torturing yourself. Like you just want this to be over. This thought just popped in my head that this was going to be the last time I ever do this, that this is my last opportunity. And all of a sudden, all of that pain just takes the back seat. It's still there. I kind of refer to it as the crying baby in the back, right? But you got to focus on the road.
Right.
So my pain's screaming in the back, but I'm focusing on the wall and getting my hand on the wall, focusing my stroke rate and my hold on the water, my breathing pattern. And I touch the wall and I turn around and I look up. And for a split second, I thought I got last. Because I wear glasses, as you can see. Yeah. And I'm not wearing prescription goggles, right? And that board is all the way at the other end of the pool. So I'm squinting and like, is that an 8? And then when I realized that fuzzy 8 was actually just a fuzzy 3, that had actually gotten an Olympic bronze medal, the first Olympic medal actually Canada's ever won in the 100-meter freestyle. You can imagine, like, it's just a wave of emotions. Like, it is just absolutely crazy. Like, throwing my arm up in the air, just screaming. And then it's just like, going over and giving Nathan Adrian, the American who won, a big hug, because he's a friend of mine. So it's like we accomplished this together. But I think like the best moment though probably came actually standing on the podium, because you can actually feel your coach, you can feel your sports team, your integrated sports team, your physio, massage, your chiro, your psychologist. You can feel your teammates, you can feel your parents and your family, and you can feel your friends that have lifted you up. And then you also feel all the naysayers that basically drove you to prove them wrong. Like, you feel all of that standing on the blocks, watching your flag get raised, feeling the weight of the medal around your neck. I think that was probably the craziest thing. But I did have, there were three special moments. I'll go through them quickly because I know we're running out of time. In the warm down pool, Michael Phelps actually coming up to me to congratulate me on my bronze medal, saying how excited he was to watch that.
That's awesome.
And I'm just thinking, like, this guy has like 22 Olympic gold medals, right? And he's congratulating me on a bronze. And then, so I kind of looked at him and shake his hand. Like, this is in the warm down pool. I said, wow, thanks, Mike. Congratulations on everything you've done. Right. Like Michael, like we knew each other. So this wasn't like, a chance encounter or anything like that. Like we speak all the time, but just still, like, that is something that I'll be able to, pass on to, I've been able to pass on to my nieces and my nephews. Hopefully I'll be able to pass that moment on to my kids, one day. If my wife and I, we have them eventually. But after that, I was in the cafeteria, and Mark Tewksbury. Mark Tewksbury is a Canadian legend. He was our gold medalist at the Barcelona Games in the 100-meter backstroke. He was a hero of mine growing up. He was our chef de mission, and he came up to me and actually told me that I made him cry actually when I got that medal. So we're starting to get a sense of what that medal actually meant to other people. And then I got back into my room, and I'm looking through the comment section of an article that came out about my medal back home. And somebody posted a picture of all these kids that came out to the leisure center in my hometown in Mission to watch the race together. And they all had their signs, like "Go Brent, Go" signs. And I guess the picture was taken the moment I actually touched the wall.
Wow.
When they're all just screaming. Like, you just see the look on all these little kids' faces. And then I saw a few familiar faces in there as well. I saw one of my teammates from when I was a little kid, Shane McCormick, actually cheering as well. Now, Shane was he was the kid that I wanted to be when I grew up, because he was the fast kid. Seeing him there, screaming for me, I started to cry right there in my dorm room, thinking about the impact that this performance is having for other people. And so I realized that it's never about the results for yourself, but it's like, what can it do for other people? How can it inspire other people to go and and achieve their own greatness?
Right. Man, what an amazing story. And just I love how you got a chance to process it, because so many times we hit a goal and then it's on to the next goal, but you got a chance to just let it sink in and just be proud of yourself. That's another thing we don't do often enough. Now, one of the things that I'm most impressed with and interested in is, people really struggle with that pivot. Obviously, you've spent your entire life focusing on this moment, and then you achieve it. And this is where a lot of people lose it, because they're like, okay, what's my identity now? What's my purpose now? And they start to backslide. In the weight loss journey, if somebody loses 100 pounds, that's their ultimate goal. They hit it, and then they're so used to being that person trying to lose weight. Well, who am I now? And you've made a very successful pivot in now your post-Olympic career. So let's talk about that a little bit. If you got an extra, another 10 minutes or so, let's dive into that, because I want to know what you've got going on now post-Olympic, Brent.
So honestly, that transition was not easy. Yeah. My wife would be one of the first people to tell you how difficult it actually was. Because you go through the whole you go through an identity crisis. You feel like Zoolander when he walks out of the awards, looking in the puddle, asking, who am I? And reflections looking back, you going, I don't know. Like you feel like that. And I think that one of the things, there were two things that really helped me through the transition. One, I have a side passion. I was really into my photography, my fine art photography. So I focused on that. You know, I actually put together an art show, making sure I'm staying in the gym, right? Keeping that routine of working out. Because, you know, when you work out, there's a lot of, your body produces, or your brain produces endorphins, right? So that helps you with your moods. When I actually stopped having a regular gym routine, that's when my temper started to flare up. I'd get frustrated super easily. And I didn't even know I was doing it. My wife had to call me out on it. And that's where my reality check really hit, because, you know, we'd just gotten married, and so I thought that things were going fine, but all of a sudden, like, she's like kind of like throwing it back in my face. And I was like, you're like, no, you said this and you said this and you said this. And I thought back, like, you're right. I actually did say those things. Why did I say those things? I felt like very ashamed of like the kind of person I was kind of turning into. So, I had to go back to the gym, right? Just to have that kind of routine, just to kind of get my endorphin hit, right? Because you don't realize that, you know, when you're on the mission to lose weight, or if you're, you know, just like if you're going towards the Olympics, it's the fact that you're in the gym and you're getting that endorphin hit, all of a sudden you stop, and it's like a drug withdrawal. You don't even realize you're going through it. So I did that. And then my wife and I, we went to Egypt because she was singing. So she was doing a media tour in Cairo. And I started kind of exploring my creative side, and I started coming up with what in my brain was just a fictitious clothing line, because I was doing a lot of motivational speaking, and I wanted to create a line that inspired people, that kind of embodied the messages that I was trying to say in my motivational speaking. Was that if you're going to succeed, it's going to take your mind, your body, and your soul, right? Calls the 3 stars, because they actually were on my Ishinryu karate crest, the 3 stars, which symbolizes the battles between the mind, body, and soul. So I started playing with those stars and putting them into a brand. And my wife kind of comes up to me one day, and she's looking at these designs, and she goes, well, why don't we do this? And I'm like, you actually think so? Like, I was almost doing this just because I didn't have TV, right? And we didn't have internet where we were staying. So Photoshop was kind of like my way to kind of entertain myself. And she started reminding me that it's like, well, you know, when you were swimming, you would always complain about your team clothing because of this, and this. Like you couldn't wear it to the gym and then wear it out as well. Like, it was big and baggy, it was frumpy, and it stunk too easily, and all these things. And so I started thinking about all these things that I didn't like about a lot of the clothing that I worked out in, because, you know, especially if you're traveling, you want to be able to go to competition, but then you want to be able to stop for dinner on your way home, you know, or something like that. And your closets are always getting smaller. Your travel bags are always getting smaller, and because airlines keep raising their prices on their baggage fees, they're trying to cut down on weight, right? So started thinking about all these problems that I had, and like, okay, well, I can do this. I can create a clothing line that inspires people, but then I can create clothing that is actually versatile as well. And then I started thinking about, well, how could I actually use this to actually help athletes, right? Because I wouldn't have had the success I had if I had not had the support that I received along the way. You know, like $100, you know, check here from, from a family friend, or, you know, $1,000 check from, you know, a local business, to eventually getting, you know, the big check from Coca-Cola, heading into London. Like, I ended up being sponsored by Visa, Speedo, Rona, which is like kind of like the Canadian Home Depot, and then Coca-Cola under the Powerade banner as well, and even General Mills, right? Like, I never would have gone to that level if I had not had the support that I'd received at the grassroots level. Right. So how can I use this as a way to actually help athletes raise funds? So what we've done now is, so we call the company Astra Athletica. So Astra is from the Latin phrase "to the stars through challenge," right? Rising through your challenges. And if you actually look at the logo, you'll actually see that we actually put the stars in a 3-tiered shape, which actually represents the Olympic podium, right? So if you're going to succeed, it's going to take all of you. It's going to take your mind, your body, and your soul to succeed. The A under the stars actually represent you reaching for your dreams, and the stars over top of the A kind of represent you standing on top of a mountain. So there's all that got built into the brand. Then I realized, like, okay, well, how are we going to actually help these athletes with it? So we created the Astra 10 for 10 program. So we've teamed up. Right now we have 9 athletes, 9 Canadian Olympics, Paralympians, and aspiring Olympians. Now we selected them because they all have these inspiring stories, and people can actually go and they can shop, and they can actually choose which athlete they actually want to support with their purchase, and we'll donate 10% of your order directly into the pockets of these athletes to make sure that they're paying for gas to get to training, able to pay for, an airplane ticket to go to their training camp, buying, real food and not living on mom and dad's, macaroni and cheese or Kraft dinner, right? Because that's not going to get you to the Olympics. And just, just trying to help them sleep a little bit better, just so that they're not, being overwhelmed with, bills that they got to pay. Right. Because that's a big reason why a lot of people leave sport, because they just can't afford it anymore. Right. They'd rather just get a job and just stop. Right. So we want to make sure that we're able to give them the opportunities to stay in sport. Now, the other cool thing about that is that by actually doing that, we actually give the customer a 10% discount off their order as well. Right. This kind of is our way of saying thank you so much, because you don't have to choose an athlete to support. Right. You don't have to just buy our clothes just because you like it. Like, you can buy it because, one, it's going to inspire you to chase your journey, but then you're going to actually get to help somebody else chase their journey as well. Right. That everybody kind of comes together, kind of like a tribe of people trying to help each other chase their goals.
Wow. My audience knows that I love a brand with a mission, obviously, the whole £1 million mission thing. And I just vibe with this so much. And I can always see, and I can feel it in your voice when somebody has made that successful transition, that new identity. I feel like you found that new why, that new thing that's bigger than you, that you are putting energy into. So I commend you, man. That's so awesome. Now, how do people get involved in this? How do they look at your stuff? How do they buy it? How do they get connected with the athletes that they want to sponsor?
Yeah. Our website is www.astraathletica.com. And if you go to our athletes page, that's where we have all our athletes listed. You can read their stories. You can like read about the challenges that they had to overcome and find out a little bit more about them. And then from there, you can actually click on their Shop Now link, and that'll automatically code in the discount for you, as well as the 10% donation towards them. And you can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Our username, our handle is Astra Athletica, just one word. So yeah, those are the ways that they can find out about us and learn about what our company stands for, and also see the clothes that we actually got, as well. And remember, like, all of our clothing is built to be versatile. It's built to go to the gym or to dinner, or like my wife wears her leggings with her high heels all the time. They look fantastic.
That's awesome. I wear my leggings with high heels also. So
no, man. Well, I think you would actually like the joggers, the men's joggers a lot. Yeah, I know. Check them out.
Well, now you've inspired me. I definitely, I'm an idea guy, so I definitely want to do some sort of social media giveaway where we'll do something. Brent and I will figure something out where I'm going to buy some of my audience members some of your gear, and we're going to let them choose who they donate to. So we will hook something up. So stay tuned to social media once this episode is live, everybody that's listening in. Now, Brent, I want to make sure, I like to leave my audience with an action step. We've entertained them, you've inspired them. I'm sure there have been a few tears along the way as they've listened to your story, but I like to give them something to say, okay, I can take action in the next 24 hours. So let's say that somebody out there is like a lot of us, they have a lot of perceived failures, and they want to take those experiences and turn them around into some positive momentum. They want to learn from those experiences. What is like one mindset tip or one action step that you would tell that person to help flip the switch from perceived failure into learning and growing from those experiences?
Yeah, I would say it's the power of yet, right? Just because you haven't hit that goal yet does not mean that you're not going to hit it later on down the road, right? Every failure that you're facing right now is preparing you for the success later on, right? Because if I had even made the final in Beijing. Not like, even if I made the final and didn't get a medal, I don't think I would have medaled in London, right? Because I had to fail so bad in Beijing to have the right mindset going into London when, I couldn't walk 2 weeks before. My rib was out of place. I'm the oldest one in the final by 5 years. My goggles were even messed up. If you watch the race, you'll actually see I'm the last one to put my goggles on because I actually had a moment where like, wow, my goggle straps are messed up. My goggles could actually fall off my head while I'm racing. If I hadn't had all those failures leading up to those games, I would not have succeeded in London. So if you're facing a failure right now, just remember the power of yet, okay? You will get there, but you just have to keep going and keep learning from your failures, because when you do succeed, it is going to feel so good and so powerful because of everything that you actually had to go through to get there, right? The challenges are what makes it worth it.
Amazing. Brent Hayden, man, you have rocked our world for the last hour. I'm just thankful that you spent some time with us. I know you've got a busy schedule. You've got a lot of stuff going on. But I just thank you so much for your contribution of energy and knowledge and to the Million Pound Mission. And I'm psyched to see where you take this brand next. I'm really excited to support you as well.
Thanks so much, Adam. And, I'm so excited to support you and follow your journey as well. I love connecting with like-minded people. I think your story is super inspiring, and, you got a great thing going on here. I'm so excited to be a part of it.
All right, everybody, you have heard Brent, the power of yet. So in the next 24 hours, I want you thinking about that next yet, that thing that you haven't quite achieved, but you want to achieve, and you have to get in your mindset that it is going to happen. So in the next 24 hours, I want you to get out there and own it every meal, every workout, every day, and I will see you on the next episode. Hey, thanks for hanging out after the show. Be sure to check the show notes for all the connection points with Brent. We'll get you all hooked up. Now, before the show, I made a announcement that I was going to talk about something new with the Transformation Reboot program. So here you go. In the past, we have been launching these pods, these mini mastermind groups periodically, where we would start a group and then work with them and then close registration and then start another group, close registration. Now we're at the point where I've got this community built. I've got an amazing mastermind group to plug people into. The community is there. The culture is there. It's very supportive. People are getting great results. It's different than anything else out there. And now you can start any time. You can go to millionpoundmission.com, click on the Transformation Reboot button, and you will get all the information there. I'm psyched for you to check this out because it's not a new diet. It's not about a brand new shiny fitness regimen. It's about having a better game plan, always working from a plan, having support around that plan so that you can get through all those bumps in the road, solve those transformation danger zones. And that, my friends, is what I love to do. It's what I'm great at. And that's where I feel like I can truly help you the most. So go to millionpoundmission.com and start your transformation reboot today.